Vaccine Mediations, a conversation with Samuel Dahan, part of the series Global Trends in Conflict Resolution with Thomas G. Giglione. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hi, everyone. This is attorney Mac Pierre Louis. I'm a lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout the states of Florida and Texas.
And I am Natalia Ołowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator based in Warsaw, Poland.
And I'm Thomas Giglione, Canadian, living in Hanoi, Vietnam, from Toronto, Canada. I'd like to introduce Samuel Dahan. He's in Toronto right now from Conflict Analytics Lab in Queen's University. Welcome, Samuel.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Samuel, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, because your background is very unique and it's going to help the viewers and listeners know a little bit better what it is that vaccine mediation is all about.
Of course. So I'm Samuel Dahan. I'm a lawyer, mediator, and a law professor, and I'm interested in data analytics and conflict resolution. So I'm heading a consortium interested in data science and conflict at Queen's University and McGill. And we are working on building open access technologies that help users to assess whether they have a chance winning a case.
And Samuel, as you continue on about the work you do, I am screen sharing right now Queen University's conflict analytics subdomain, I should say. And for anybody who might be listening and not watching, be sure to check out the YouTube video where you'll be able to see some of these pages on my screen. But Samuel, can you continue on a little bit more about the work you've been doing with Queen University and My Open Court?
Yes, of course. So basically the idea of conflict analytics is to apply data science and other methods to learn from past negotiations, past mediation agreements. So why is that? I mean, the idea is that, you may have heard, and many of our listeners may have heard of the concept of legal analytics and using AI to make legal predictions. So in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, I think it is problematic to make predictions solely based on legal decisions and especially judgments, because in many areas, most cases are resolved through negotiation and mediation. So we're talking about 90% of the cases in employment law, consumer protections. So the idea of conflict analytics, but to look at the bigger picture. So okay, we work with organizations, law firms, banks, now the Ministry of Defense in Canada, to look at how they resolved disputes in the past and whether we can help them to be better, not necessarily about making decisions for them, but at least at learning from the wisdom of the past and to make better decisions in the future.
Thank you. And so the broad topic for today is dealing with Samuel.
Here.
Okay. The broad topic for today is dealing with vaccine mediations. And so globally, there's been a lot of focus about vaccine hesitancy over the past year, right? After the rollout of vaccines in the United States and in Europe and throughout the rest of the world, there's been controversy where some people discuss side effects and other people discuss unwillingness to trust a vaccine and stuff like that. And so because there is conflict in this new space of vaccines pertaining to COVID-19, it's pertinent to have this conversation with you about what AI can do to help resolve some of these disputes. So we wanted to just have you and Thomas talk about this today, about the work that you're doing broadly. And feel free, Thomas, to kind of help lead the conversation. And Natalia, please give your input and your perspective from Europe. But I guess the ground's been laid, Thomas, for you, Thomas and Samuel, for you guys to kind of tell us what is vaccine mediation and what is the work that you're doing in this space.
Yeah, I have a question, Samuel.
Yeah.
Your platform is based on conflict analytics. From your experience in working with other areas of law, specifically employment law, contract termination, and that is based on Canadian law, and a lot of it is based on Canadian law. How is the vaccine platform conflict analytics the same or different? Because there's not too much case law that, or any laws that are specific right now in this area, because it's such a new area. So
Absolutely,
how does it work?
So in a way, yeah, you're very much right. So the employment applications are usually trained on past judgments, and employment termination, for example, there's been a lot of cases. So we've trained both the natural language processing models, regressions, decision trees, random forests to learn how judges make decisions. But the vaccine is very different because, as you rightfully pointed out, there is no case law. And also, the way it works for vaccine compensation scheme is that it's a no fault compensation scheme. So nobody here who has been experiencing side effect can sue a pharmaceutical company. There is only one option. The one I know is from a European law standpoint is if you're able to demonstrate that the benefit of the vaccine was not greater that the damages caused, that's the only way you would be able to sue a pharmaceutical company. But obviously, it's almost impossible. So most governments, what they've done, including Canada recently, which didn't have a compensation scheme until January, they've created what we call a no-fault compensation schemes. By no fault, it means you don't have to prove that there's something wrong with the vaccine or the company made a mistake. It's just that the government decided that some people have taken the risk by taking the vaccine, and they should be looked after. So what we've done with this application is we created a rule-based system, which is a very simple AI. Some people would not even call this AI. So users, we looked at all the tiny rules, both in Canada and the US. So, actually speaking Canada, Quebec and federal Canada are very different when it comes to vaccine because Quebec has a compensation scheme. They've had a compensation scheme since the 70s. So we looked at the rules of how you're eligible, how you're not eligible, what constitutes a severe side effect, and we coded this in decision tree, and eventually what will happen is when users report their side effects, it will tell them whether they're eligible to a vaccine compensation. If they are eligible, the system will extract the data that they inputted in the system, and eventually will draft a claim and submit the claim either to the US compensation scheme or the Canadian compensation scheme. So here, it's just the idea is to simplify the process as much as possible for users. And once they're eligible, we will match the users. We connect the user to one of our mediation caseworkers, usually law students from Queen's or other universities in Canada, who will accompany the users from both a legal standpoint and also as well as a moral support, a psychological standpoint, because obviously experiencing side effect is not a pleasant experience for anyone.
So if I am to follow on that from the perspective of the end user, if I am vaccinated and I believe I am suffering from some sort of side effects, I can go onto your website and fill in some forms and check what will I get actually? What sort of questions will I be answering, and what will I get as a first step?
So you will be asked what kind of vaccine you took, when did you get it, where will you take the vaccine, what kind of side effects. So we have a team of researchers that are monitoring, collecting medical data based on medical papers, not Facebook. And they are looking at what is recognized as a side effect by science. Science is, obviously, it's debated what is acceptable, what's not acceptable, but we're trying to do a decent job at collecting the relevant data on what's recognized as a side effect. And then eventually, if your side effects are considered severe, because vaccine compensation scheme only compensates in case of death or very severe side effects. And eventually, will the application, the system will output not a prediction, but an outcome, would say you may be eligible. If you are eligible, then we'll connect the user to a mediator who will accompany the user to submit their claims. So one disclaimer, I'm sure some of our users who are experienced, some of your listeners who are experienced mediators may say, but that's not mediation. That's correct. Technically speaking, that's not mediation, but we thought it was an interesting name, and there is conflict resolution involved, so we really like the name.
And so what can a user expect as an end result of the process? If they qualified, so the side effects are severe enough, and they go through all these steps as required and provide the necessary information, who will they be contacted by, and what will they lead them to?
Okay, so they will be contacted by what we call a mediation caseworker. So usually they're junior lawyers who are very familiar with the procedures, the vaccine injury claims procedures, and these mediators, caseworker, will help them to complete the form, even though the machine automatically complete the forms and submit the forms. And eventually, what the user can expect is that a claim will be submitted automatically to the relevant vaccine compensation scheme. So then we can guarantee, obviously, that the compensation scheme, it's not a tribunal, but it's a regulator. It's almost it's an administrative body that makes a decision that is almost like an adjudicative process. And they will make a decision. Usually in Quebec, they consult with the doctor. There are a couple of experts, and we cannot guarantee that they will agree with our assessment. But at least we hope to simplify the process and streamline the process for users so that they can at least bring a complaint to the relevant organization.
Thank you for that.
I have a question, Samuel. Instant Mediations has been doing a series of podcasts with myself included, dealing with AI, blockchain, and all the areas of technology involving mediation. I'm quite proud as a Canadian to hear all the good work that you're doing with conflict analytics in Toronto. And whenever I look for leading edge information, I become very proud to see what the work that's coming out of British Columbia and Toronto. I'd like to acknowledge you for your work on that. But if you allow me to just for 1 minute be a devil's advocate, okay? Okay.
Please go ahead.
So just to spice things up a little bit, you mentioned that you've just launched in the United States, and as a Canadian, I know about no fault insurance. We have in Ontario. Quebec has a different system, but many insurance policies, insurance companies are governed by state statute, state law. So are you not, what I'm trying to say is, this whole issue about vaccines has become politicized, especially in the United States. It's really been a hot potato.
Also in Canada.
And it's trickled down actually to involving family disputes. We're coming up to Thanksgiving in the U.S. and Canada. I'm sure Thanksgiving is going to be a pretty hot topic because of vaccines and because of the polarization of families. Well, I have a very good friend in Ottawa who is actually having a dispute with her husband, and they're actually living on different floors. They're married, and it's creating a marital dispute. So I'm concerned that if this becomes more politicized, a lot of the data that you will have could be used by groups on both sides to maybe launch a class action suit against insurance or pharmaceuticals, maybe to make fraudulent claims, through doctors and such. I'm just wondering whether this might become a real hornet's nest, looking, as a potential. I'm not saying it'll happen, but I could foresee a possibility of that happening, especially in the United States, where it's very politicized and it's very controversial.
Yeah, so you're pointing out a real issue. So when we started working on this project back in December of 2020, the vaccine was not even available, I mean, to most countries. So it was less politicized, but we realized that this could be turned against not us, but against the vaccine, and say, oh, actually, someone who is not keen or vaccine hesitant, which is totally fair. I mean, I know there's like a lot of debates on that, but there's a strong, there's a strong, like, the high level of vaccine hesitancy both in the US and actually in some European countries, including France. And some of these fears are unjustified, others are justified. And it may be argued that a tool like ours, or even vaccine no fault compensation, could be a signal to those who are hesitant that there is a problem with the vaccine, and therefore they shouldn't be taking the vaccine because the government is getting ready to compensate people because they know they will get sick. The reality is that we're lawyers, and this doesn't really solve the problem, which is that those who get sick have to be looked after. And as a lawyer who is interested in access to justice, this is a mission that our lab has within its mandate. And those who are sick from the vaccine, because they've taken the risk for the greater good, and for many of the younger generation, that's what it is. Many of them have said, I may not be sick from COVID, but I'm going to take the vaccine because I want to go back to a normal life. So these people need to be looked after. I think that's a general moral and legal obligation that we as lawyers have. Now the question, we're working, there is one of my collaborators at Oxford. She's a special, we were some research members in our team all working on the issue of acceptability and vaccine compensation. So there is evidence, and this is not my expertise, so it'd be very hard for me to expand a little further on this issue. But there is evidence that a good compensation scheme is good for vaccine uptake and acceptability. So, but in my opinion, they are very different problems. I think they're not very different problems, they're related problems. But for us as lawyers, our job is to think about how are we going to look after those who are sick. And I think they're not mutually exclusive. And yes, there is a risk. I totally acknowledge the risk that some vaccine hesitant will use this as an argument against the vaccine. But I hope that there will be greater benefits that will outweigh this risk that you're pointing out.
I have a quick question, a follow up with that. Your vaccine conflict, your analytics is based on the COVID-19 only, right? Would you consider expanding to other vaccines because there is vaccine hesitancy now that's growing
Absolutely.
now in
Yeah.
many states in the United States, which is really sad. I say it's sad because from a personal point of view, I grew up in Canada, and I remember primary school. My parents were Italian immigrants, so Canada is a melting pot of immigrants, and I remember growing up with some immigrant children from Eastern Europe that had no polio vaccine. Two of my classmates had steel braces and walked with limps, and um, they were unfortunate not to get the polio vaccine. So for me, it really touches home that the reason why all of us here don't have polio or don't have measles or smallpox is because of this vaccine. But I understand, there is this the concern that's growing in this other area. Now I'm wondering if you're going to be expanding to other vaccines because there might be a demand for that also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the same problem remains, is that the decisions that are made by vaccine composition schemes are not available to the public. So it's going to be much harder for us to reverse engineer the system to understand how vaccine composition schemes make decision. Because to train an AI, I mean, an AI is not smart. It needs to learn from criteria. It needs to learn from past decision, and how it does that by looking at past data. And we don't have access to the data. So what we're doing now with COVID, because there's so much data on COVID, it's easier to look at medical research. Okay, so here's a recognized side effect, but the vaccine composition seems to compensate in severe side effects. So we're trying to piece like the everything together. For other vaccine, it's harder. Although, I mean, we are hoping to, we've had discussion with WHO and COVAX to look at their data and work with them on building a system internally. The other question is, it's building an AI for lawyers and conflict is extremely expensive, because lawyers and AI scientists are the most expensive employees right now in the world. So that's also another concern that we have in mind.
Yeah, let me contribute something. So, is it possible that a good might come out of this, where based on the data that results, it might actually produce more assurance to
Correct.
people to take on the vaccine because they see, wow, there's transparency here.
Yeah.
Here's what different people are saying has happened to them. And based on the data, based on the numbers and the amount of people who are quote unquote, having bad effects, it's a risk that, one should take. Is that, I guess, the hope that you have?
Yeah, I think you're pointing out something really interesting here. So two things actually. So first thing is that we are an independent organization. We are a research organization. We're not affiliated to the government. So, and I want to I want to believe that most, I mean, even if some people are not, so they may have lost a little bit of trust in the government or in the private sectors. I hope that they believe that academic research is still as neutral as it can be, and therefore independent and impartial. So hopefully, and then and thanks to transparency, it will encourage a acceptability and vaccine uptake. Maybe yes, maybe not. The second, if I can say, positive side effect is that through self-reporting, we may be able to identify new side effects that haven't been noticed before, or we may even be able to debunk some myth that on some side effect that never really existed. And the fact that we are an independent organization, will are very much keen on publication and transparency, may encourage more vaccine acceptability uptake. That's maybe ambitious, very ambitious to believe in that, but I think it's worth a try.
Mhm.
Natalia, did you have something to add? And Thomas, you can follow up.
I wanted to again address the issue because we are saying artificial intelligence, and you might imagine that in many people that really builds mistrust because it
Of
is
course.
being perceived as some sort of computer engineering behind it. Depending on the criteria or parameters you set up as a primary, you might come to different outcomes. Maybe it is sponsored or financed by this or other company. And
True.
actually, if I put my data into it, I might actually participate in something that doesn't make me feel comfortable. So data protection is one, and second is the human factor in all of it. How
Yeah.
are the participants taking part in this valuable project protected, and whom they are actually work with to help them go through evident trauma? Because if they already suffered the side effects,
Yeah.
they are going through something difficult in their lives.
Yeah, yeah, no, you're these are all again very interesting points. So first regarding data protection, even though we're not a European-based organization, we are compliant with most of the GDPR obligations, legal obligations. So GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, which is today, I mean, in to the best of my knowledge, I'm not an expert in privacy, but it's like the most stringent piece of regulation on data protection. So again, I hope that the users do trust us. Most of our funding comes from public grants. We don't get funding from pharmaceuticals or even the government. I mean, like I'm talking about, yes, we do get funding from the research, but they're not. It's not the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Justice giving us money to build that thing so that it looks like we're doing something good for people who get sick from the vaccine. So I hope that signals a certain level of accountability and trust. Regarding I think that the moral support and the fact that the users are already experiencing a severe trauma. So that's the reason we genuinely believe that it was important to create a network of mediators. And actually, the idea came from my master thesis advisor, Larry Suskind, and he said he's supportive of the project, but I think he's skeptical, and he's rightfully skeptical, like the AI in ADR in general. And it's a great idea to combine that human AI collaborative model where our mediation caseworkers will help to assist the users and also clarify any unclear, I mean, any potential misunderstandings. Regarding the lack of trust of AI, you're very much, but this is not going to be one of these black box, like credit card score where it's not based on 1,000 of features. It's very simple AI, and if it goes wrong, first it's an explainable AI. So every time we make a prediction or the machine creates it explains why. So it gives the reasons why, which criteria it shows, and if the user feels like this is not good enough, they will know why the machine made a decision. And that's true and again, that's because we're compliant to GDPR, and we want to make an AI that is explainable. And at the same time, it's a very basic decision-making model. So most people would probably know or find out the reason why they were eligible or not eligible.
Thank you.
Great. One quick question, closing question. With conflict analytics, I know that you just launched, and it's very important that your data is much more accurate with more cases and more submissions. What's the magic number where you feel that the data is good, and how much time will it take to get there?
So I don't know if it's a magic number, but a decent number is 1,000 data points. Between 700 and 1,000 data points, we can start producing very interesting results. So it shouldn't be so hard to get there, provided again that there's a certain level of trust and we get enough support as well and resources to continue with this project.
Okay, guys. So we're right around the time where we're going to be finishing up, and I wanted to thank you, Samuel, for stopping by to chat with us and Thomas about this. This is a very important subject. It's something that is we're going to be seeing you back, all right? I mean, this is not going anywhere. It's going to become more of a concern across time due to the fact that COVID doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and vaccine hesitancy doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and side effects. I mean, people want the data, and the work you're doing will continue expanding knowledge in information research. So we're looking very much forward to it and all the great work you continue to do in the future. So if people want to get in touch with you, obviously your LinkedIn is on the screen for people who are listening. Again, we encourage you to watch this video on YouTube so you can check out the links that we've shared on video today. So that's it from me. Mac Pelui signing off.
Natalia Uskachajka, until the next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you very much, everyone. A great conversation.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.